y'all, I know I ain't crazy. Y'all, did they not tell us months and what? It had to be at least 4 months ago. OMG, it was longer than 4 months ago. Did they not show us a scene when Elon and Jacob and Marcel were talking about how the mayor, I think it was, but someone big in the city was down, breathing down their neck about the lack of arrests that they'd had. And so they were talking about how they could get Leslie. And Marcel volunteered, and he said that he would be able to get Leslie to confess. Did they not show us that, y'all? And I'm like, how did they go from that to turning Marcel and Leslie into some sort of love story where not one time on any of their sexual escapades, and they haven't shown us that many, I think maybe 3 or 4, not one time have we seen Marcel asking Leslie anything having to do with any of her crimes, or even trying to catch her when she sleep talking. So I'm like, how did they switch this over? And see, this is the thing for me that's really difficult. I guess I could say about soaps in general. I mean, I don't know, I suppose. I mean, this is the only soap I've watched. I mean, do they really just abandon storylines like this, or just totally go from one thing to the next? I'm like, even if they were to try to insert it now that he's going to try to get some answers out of her, it wouldn't even make sense with the way they've been writing. Anyway, child. Anyway. Hey, y'all, I know y'all getting ready for work, or you're already at work. Welcome back. This is the recap review discussion of episode 153. Y'all, we're knocking them down, almost to 200 or 250 episodes. So let's talk about what happened on Monday's show. Well, y'all saw the hug between Kat and Jacob, right? I can't decide now. Do I want them to give us some sort of crazy storyline where Kat and Jacob get together, or where Kat and Isaiah get together? Because they're throwing Kat and Isaiah together more and more, although they weren't together on today's episode, but we saw them. We know that it's coming up because when they showed us the previews for this week, last week, we know that Eva's going to be jealous once again when she rolls into, uptowns and she sees them giggling and sniggling together at a table. But she really does have more chemistry with Jibri. And so, y'all, listen, don't be surprised if we get the word, that Alex, who plays our Tomas, is going to, he's going to be written off just kind of like Derek. Because I can see that's where this is going. If you guys remember how things were with Derek, we never saw Derek's family. He didn't really have, he just was kind of like the loner. Now, we did see some of his friends at the fire station, and when he died, they brought his father and whatnot. And we know in the future we can get an evil twin brother, right? Which will be, again, Ben Gavin. But still, though, it's kind of the same thing with this character of Tomas. He doesn't have any friends in the city other than Eva, okay? We haven't seen his family, although he talks about his family in Puerto Rico. So I really wouldn't be surprised if they wrote him out because, come on, honestly, would we miss him? I wouldn't. So, today we pick up where they left us off on Monday. So let's start with Vernon and Anita. Vernon and Anita are at home, and he is going over or suggesting a meal plan or a menu for Naomi's birthday celebration. He says to her, what do you think? The Chilean sea bass or the filet mignon? And she's like, you know what? We don't even know if Naomi's going to even be able to be with us. She's pulling double duty, her firm and Bill's. And y'all, Vernon says, you know what? That could be a whole setup from Bill Hamilton. And Anita's like, wait, how? How could he be setting it? And she's like, Naomi was very clear from, Giddy Up, in essence, that she never wanted big law. That was not her. She wanted to really help people. But Vernon says, you know what? Bill's dream has always been he and Naomi, and he has not let go of it. There are tons and tons of other lawyers there that could, I was thinking, I think most of us have said the same thing. But he says to Anita that Bill could very well be just trying to give her a taste of what it's like. And Vernon relates this to his own life, how when he was an activist on the front lines fighting. He thought there was nothing other than in life than that until he got a taste of he could do more if he was on the inside. And so he took the route of politics. And Anita's like, yeah, that's true, but this ain't that, And y'all, why is it that we see Danny coming over to her parents' house? You know what, y'all? Can't we just all see it? And Carla Mosley is doing a fabulous job playing this confused Danny Dupree. Can't we just see in Danny's face that she knows she should want Andre? He's the better man, but yet she really doesn't want Andre. And she's in the valley of decision where Danny is trying to convince herself something must be wrong. How do I say this? She's trying to convince herself not to want Bill because of all the dirt he did, but yet she still wants Bill. And everybody is telling her, Andre is the man who loves you and cares for you, and he treats you like a queen. Why would you leave that to go to a man who trashed you constantly? And y'all, Danny is still trying to make herself believe that she doesn't love Bill, nor does she want him. But we all know it's written all over her face, and guess what? It's written all in her actions. So she shows up over there after leaving Bill's office where she was talking with Naomi. We'll talk about that in a second. And there, she's like telling them, Naomi's can join us for her birthday celebration, and Vernon and Anita are glad about that. But she also tells them Bill is out the hospital. And then she starts going on about how if Haley is cheating on Bill, and so Vernon says, wait a minute. And even if she is, honey, what does that have to do with you? And I'm like, yes, what does it have? Y'all, listen, even if, let's just say it were true, which we know as viewers it isn't, that Haley was cheating on Bill, that ain't got nothing to do with Danny. If his two grown daughters want to look into that, she's got her own life. When they open up today's show with Haley telling Danny, you just keep trying to convince yourself that you're really happy with Andre. If that's a lie, you got to tell yourself. Isn't it a lie, y'all? Isn't that a lie she's telling herself? Danny is way too concerned about. Listen, Bill done apologized to her 11 times for cheating on her. He done said, I'm sorry. He done told her he loved her. He done said he regretted it. Why isn't that enough for Danny? Why Danny now has to prove that, Haley is cheating on him. And yet she tells Andre, I'm not going to prioritize Bill. I'm going to prioritize you. But look at where she's spending all her time and what she's spending all her energy on. Bill, Bill, and more Bill. Again, is written all over her face. Y'all remember that song? What was his name? Aaron Hall, I think it was, from the 90s. Anyway, so Anita and Vernon go on the mission that they've been on since season 1, child, since the show first came on, trying to convince their grown daughter to leave Bill alone, to not be concerned about Bill, to let Bill go. And Danny is saying, Mother, Daddy, you don't have to be concerned. I'm not, Bill is the one, who has a problem, not me. And they're like, we just want to remind you that you have a husband. And y'all, Danny's like, I know, Daddy. When Vernon reminds her, you have a husband, Andre loves you and he treats you like a queen. Yes, I know, Daddy. And it's like, poor Danny. Well, Anita did remind her, you know what, while you so basically concerned about him cheating on Haley, you should be reminding yourself of all the times he cheated on you. But she didn't say it like that. She just says to her, he wasn't kind to you when he was cheating on you. And y'all, it's as if Danny has forgotten that. And I just want to say this. I just want to say this to all the women that, you know what, let's not play ourselves, guys. There are some real folks. There are some real women in the world who are like Danny. Sometimes as a woman, you got to just take yourself by the nape of the neck or the nape of the neck. But we used to say the nap of the neck, because as black folks, we got these naps. And let me tell you something. You got to sit yourself down and say, Johnny ain't no good. You got to spend more time rehearsing the terrible things he did, because the devil is a liar, and the devil will make you remember every good thing and not make you remember all the terrible things. And so I just hope, for Danny's sake, that she stays away from Bill. But we all know that's not what's going to happen. Let's talk about what she was doing before she came over there. Like I said, she went to Bill's office. They picked us up where they left us off last week. remember, Haley had gone to Bill's office to get his laptop because he asked her to when he was in the hospital. And then Danny came in there because she thought Naomi was going to be there. And she and, Haley traded barbs. And again, Haley was reminding her, why are you so concerned about my husband? Don't you got a husband, girl? Basically. And y'all, Danny is just sitting there trying to convince herself. But then in comes Naomi as they're arguing. She says, what is going on? I can hear you both all the way from the hall. And you know what? Haley says, I was just in here minding my business in my husband's hall, trying to get his laptop when Danny came in here. And so they trade a few more barbs and she leaves. And then Naomi says to Danny, are you okay? And she's like, you think that blubbering, did anything to me? Listen, all it proves is that she's up to something. And listen, we, not y'all, but we need to get her away from Bill. I'm like, Lord have mercy. So Naomi and Danny just sit and they just get caught up, right? She tells her about Tomas. She tells her about, all those types of things that have been going on. They also talk a little bit about Chelsea. And then Naomi gets a call from Ashley letting her know that Bill has been released from the hospital. But also she tells Danny that Ashley caught Bill and Haley almost about to get it on in the hospital bed. Y'all listen. Even when Danny was over there with her parents, do y'all know this girl brought this up over there? It's like, y'all listen. Anyway. And so when she get that call, Danny is like, oh, and so are you going to go over there and see him? And she's like, yeah, you want to come with me? And she's like, first Danny was going to say yes. Y'all know she was. And then she's like, no. And how many of us know Danny going to wind up over there? Y'all, even though we know Andre got a lot going on now with this whole Heather thing, but I still feel sorry for Andre. Andre is even resisting Heather because he loves Danny so much. And we can tell it's a struggle for him to resist getting in the bed with Heather, but he's resisting because he loves Danny. And look at what Danny's out here doing, ripping and running behind Bill. I'm like, child. Anywho. So we'll see tomorrow where Danny went after she left her parents' home. But Naomi and Chelsea wind up coming over to Bill's house. Let's talk about what was happening. Well, first of all, Bill was in the hospital, okay? And Haley came in there with the laptop. Madison was in there at first. And, just kind of going over everything, letting him know that she conferred with Dr. Wilkes, and he is indeed free to go. But she expects for him to follow all the little, rules and regimens they have for him to make sure that, everything stays intact. You know what I was thinking, y'all? Isn't it crazy that Bill has a pacemaker for nothing? And so when this all does come out, however and whenever BTG, because it's been dragging on forever, but I digress. So whenever it comes out, to know that this man had major surgery on his heart and it was unnecessary. Ooh, child, I'm just mad thinking about it. But anyway, so Madison tells Bill that, you know what? You're going to, I still am going to not stop until I figure out what's going on with you. And he thanks her and he lets her know that he's really grateful to know that one day she's going to be his, daughter-in-law or whatever. And so I will tell y'all, after that, Haley comes in with the laptop and he's like, oh, don't need it. I can be released. So they get to kissing and going on, and in comes Ashley. And she's like, didn't we warn you guys? And Haley's like, Ashley, please unclench. We were just kissing. I thought that was funny, unclench. And so, y'all, Ashley is so annoying, okay? And I'm right with Bill and Haley. Girl, get out of here. Give us the paper, girl, and go on. Anyway, so Ashley gives them the paper with all the instructions about what he can and can't do, et cetera, et cetera. But she also tells him that Dr. Wilkes is recommending, y'all, for Bill to participate in a cardiac rehab program. Bill said, I ain't come back up in here. And she's like, y'all know Ashley. You know what? I'm really serious when I say Ashley is annoying. So she starts pressing it. But he said, you know what? Thank you. Basically, get the hell out. So anyway, and so y'all, we see Haley and Bill go home. Listen, when I tell y'all, I'm so sick of seeing this girl put poison in a cup, in a glass, in a cup, in a bowl, in a whatever, taking it out of her bosom, putting it in her bosom. I'm just so tired. I ain't never. I'm like, you know what? Lord have mercy. These folks drag something out till it lose all interest in life. Okay, but anywho, child. So they're at home kissing and whatnot, and she convinces Bill to go upstairs and take a shower because basically he funky. No, no, no. She tells him he basically, yes, he does have an odor, but also his natural musk is what he calls it. But she said, yeah, but that's layered on top of Garland Memorial. So when he goes to take a shower, you know what happens, okay? She pulls the bottle of poison out of her bosom, as Mom and them would say, and she pours it, she drops several drops into his glass. He comes back downstairs looking all good. And he's like, well, should I be having this? And she's like, I looked at your papers and they said moderate alcohol use. You know what, y'all? I said, if Beyond the Gates don't leave me alone, if they don't leave me alone, how come? Y'all saw it, right? When Bill is drinking this drink, he's like, I'm like, you know what? I cannot anymore. I will not. I shall not. Nope. I'm like, I know this actor, Tymon, he's sick of this too. I know he is. Anyway. So as they get to kissing and going on, Bill gets notification on his tablet that somebody's at the door. How come it's Naomi and Chelsea? Y'all, they ain't called or nothing. And so they come in, Dad, it's so great to see. You're out of the hospital. And y'all, Haley looking like, And she said, well, so much for calling. And so Bill's looking like, Haley, don't get nothing started. And so she says to him that she's going to go and get dinner started. I think this is the first time I know it's not the first time, so I should say it this way. This is the first time in a long time is what I'm trying to say, that I've actually heard Haley say she's finna go make dinner. Normally they just order something out, but anyway. So she makes herself, invisible, and Naomi and Chelsea sit down. I have to say, I really enjoyed this scene. I liked seeing, you know what, honestly, for me as a viewer, this is one of the few times I've actually seen Bill, Naomi, and Chelsea having fun together. Like, they were joking and playing around with each other. Now, I've seen them together before, of course, when they were smiling, but it seemed like this was the most lighthearted I've ever seen them, and I really enjoyed that. So anyway, so they were playing around with him, and he's like, y'all's daddy is back in full force, big bad Bill Hamilton. And so Naomi's like, you're the only one who actually calls yourself that. And so then, and Chelsea says, and it doesn't sound good. And so they get to laughing and joking. Haley comes in and she's about to tell him dinner's ready, child. And she interrupts. She sees that she's about to interrupt them. So she backs out of the room and she imagines what she wishes would happen. That Bill gets up, says, I got to use the restroom, and falls out with a heart attack on the sofa, on the chair. And we see in this vision she's having in her head, Naomi and Chelsea like, Dad, what do we do? Dad. And Naomi says, I think he stopped breathing. And then she comes back to reality and she walks in. So we shall see. And Bill is telling the girls, your daddy is here to stay, basically. Oh, Lord. I have to say, my ex-husband made me laugh today, y'all. Marcel is a mess. Y'all hear me? So they show us Marcel and Jacob up at the police station. And Marcel accidentally spills some of his coffee. And he says, damn it. And so Jacob... Wait a minute, y'all. So Jacob says, what's wrong with you? What'd that coffee do to you? And Marcel said, less than what I'm going to do. You know what? Let's just listen to, you know what? No. I can't play a clip today because I don't have time to edit out all the little music and stuff. Basically, Marcel tells him, mind your business and stop minding mine. And so Jacob's like, okay, you in a mood? What's wrong with you? Did your date with Leslie go bad? And Marcel just giving him the death stare like, shut your mouth. So then Leslie comes in, y'all. And Leslie trades barbs with Jacob. And then she sits down and she commences, y'all, to telling Marcel that, listen, even though she doesn't want to live with him on his boat, that doesn't mean she's ready for their relationship to be over. She even says to him that, she thought they were enjoying each other. And he's like, you know what? But y'all, Marcel is still in a stank mood, okay? And so he's saying to her, you know what? If I want to be treated like crap, I would have stayed with my ex-wife. And so she says to him that she's going to beg. And he's like, you know what? I'd like to see that. And so then she starts, all the sexual innuendo talk. And y'all, how come Jacob looking over there with a stank face like, y'all nasty. And so she tells Marcel, follow her because she will show him what it's like to beg. How come they get to the hotel, to the Bowman, and they kissing and whatnot, y'all, and Marcel stops. And she's like, what is it? Why did you stop? And he's like, I'm waiting. So she's like, for what? For you to do what you said you're going to do. And she said, I know you don't think I'm going to actually get on my knees and beg. I was just playing with you. Y'all, Marcel said, listen, this, I love this line. He said, listen, basically, I'm a man. I'm not a boy. Don't play with me. And if you want to be with me, he says to her, basically, you have to treat me with some respect. And so, y'all, she sits on the side of the bed with him, and she commences to genuinely apologize. But this is the question I had. Y'all know for the longest time in season 1, I kept saying to y'all, when are they going to give us more information about Leslie's marriage to this Alan dude? We know that it wasn't a happy marriage. I mean, we know he wasn't the best stepdad to Eva. We've heard Eva talk about that. And I told you guys, anytime that Leslie even talks about Alan, she talks about it as if it was nothing. We didn't know how long they were married. How did they get together? Is Alan the man that she took from Peaches? But today we get a little bit more intel here, where when Leslie is saying to Marcel, you're the first guy who actually made me feel likable. He says, what about your ex-husband? And she says, or your husband, because remember the man died. And we still don't know if Leslie had anything to do with that. But anyway, and so Leslie begins to say that Alan didn't even really want to be bothered with her, that she got the feeling he didn't even want her really to be around. And I thought that was very interesting and curious. You know what I'm saying? Even Marcel was looking like, what? And so anyway, so we know that it seems, y'all, I mean, at first I used to think when Marcel was first, sleeping with Leslie, that he was just doing that to work his way up to trying to get some information out of her. But like I said at the top of the podcast, it seems as if they've totally abandoned that part of the story. And again, it's been so long. If they were to try to pick it up now, for me, and I'm just speaking about my viewer experience, it wouldn't even make any sense because, I mean, all the conversations they've had all these months, he ain't never, I'm like, So, yeah. So let's talk about Chelsea and Kat. So before Chelsea and Naomi went over to Bill's house when they got the news he was out of the hospital, they took us back to what happened Friday. Chelsea and Kat were up at the Uptowns, but not at the bar, and she was getting those calls. So they talk it through, and Kat brings her a shot, and she says, I know how to get your mind off of all of this. And she tries to talk Chelsea off the ledge by saying to her, we don't really know if it's Allison. And Chelsea's like, I know it's her. We know that she's in a psych ward. And so Kat says, you know what? She's locked away. She's in a straitjacket. And so they say that they're going to get out of Uptowns because this is actually where she met Allison. And so what we later see is Chelsea and Kat going over to Garland, where Chelsea is there to talk to Madison. And she's like, Kat, you don't have to babysit me. And Kat says, I am not going to let you out of my sight until I know that you're in safe hands. So she leaves, and Madison comes around the corner, and Madison just is there to console Chelsea because Chelsea lets her know, I am having a terrible day. She tells her about the phone calls. Even Madison says, are you sure it's Allison? I mean, how do you know? And she's like, I just know because the dream I had was basically a prophecy or a foretelling. So we later see Kat going over to the police station, and she tells Jacob about all these calls. And she says, I think that Allison broke out of the psych ward because people break out of jail every day. Remember that man in Louisiana? And so Jacob is like, you and your crime podcast. And so Jacob makes a call wherein he finds out Allison actually has not broken out of anywhere. She's still very much in the forensic psych ward. She's in her, I often say her stall, but she's not a horse. She's in her cell. And so Kat, and he tells Kat, I made sure that they know about the situation. They're going to see if she's got a cell phone somehow. And also they're going to monitor her calls as she makes on the institution phone. And y'all, how come Kat embraces Jacob and hugs him tight and says, "Oh, Jacob, thank you so much." I'm like, Well, y'all, hold on. Y'all know I have to look at my notes, child, because, well, let's go back to Leslie and Marcel. Child, listen. The next thing we see, child, Leslie and Marcel in robes. I was wondering, what does Daryl Handy have on 2 robes? I mean, what kind Now, I've gone to some fancy hotels, and some of these robes are so thick, it makes it look like you got on 2 of them. I mean, he just looked like a big bear. I'm like, well, now, dang, how many robes he got on anyway? So, and she has ordered room service. Y'all, how come when Leslie opens the thing, she done got the man hot dog and fries, and she got herself some shrimp and something else. And so he's like, what is this? Basically some sort of a cartoon meal or something like that. And she reminds him of something he said to her at the police station when she was saying to him, "I'm sorry, and I don't want our relationship to be over." And he was like, "I'm a simple man with simple taste. I don't care nothing about your money. I don't care nothing about no Egyptian cotton sheets and all this mess that Leslie was talking about." So she says to him, "Well, you said you were a simple man with simple taste." And he's like, "But yeah, but you're going to give me a hot dog and you get yourself shrimp." And so anyway, so they continue their little love making. Y'all, that's pretty much it for 153, right? You know what? What I find so interesting is that we know that Andre and Heather are going to, we know that Heather is not going to stop until she gets Andre. The only issue I have with this, y'all, is how is this really going to tie into the Bill and Danny and Haley murder plot storyline? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. And I know we just have to wait and let it all play itself out. I get all that. But I'm telling y'all right now, like I said to you several weeks ago, if I have to watch Haley put more poison in a glass, oh yeah, I understand Bill has fallen out now. He's got a pace, but that still ain't moving the story along for moi. Okay? This thing needs to be over. Let me ask you guys this. For those of you who've been watching, here's my question. Do they drag these types of things out like this because they don't want to fire the actors? Because I'm thinking, once Bill's storyline comes to an end, doesn't that mean that Marquita Goins, who plays our Haley, that she's no longer going to be on the show? I mean, I was actually wondering about that. Like, maybe the reason that they keep with this mess, which is totally, ridiculous at this point and very silly, is because they don't want to get rid of her. And maybe is it because they didn't write in that Leslie got some kind of justice for her crimes? Is because they didn't want to let Trisha Mann Grant go? Like, I wonder, like how much of this has to do with them wanting to keep the actors and not knowing kind of what direction to go in. I don't know. I guess for me, I've just been trying to figure out, why is it that they do drag the storylines out so far to where they just have lost interest almost. Now, I understand that storylines have to be drug out because, well, we have to make a certain number of episodes. I get that. I really do. I began to understand that in season 1. I'm talking about now something different. When they drag it out so far to where it loses all its taste. You know how they say, salt gives everything taste? It doesn't have any more salt in it anymore, And even though he's fallen out and all these things have happened within the last week or two, it's still not moving the story along. He's still alive and she's still poisoning him. So we're really still in the same place. Is that because they don't want to get rid of her? Or do they have to get rid of her? Like, I don't know. And where is Lynette? Where's the girl who played Lynette? She was doing a fabulous job. So anyway, matter of fact, she was doing a better job than Marquita Goins, who's been playing Haley now for 2 years. And she's, in my opinion, she still is struggling in this character. She's not struggling as much as she used to be, but she's still not, there, if you know what I mean. So there you have it, guys. That's the recap review discussion of episode 153. I'll be back and we'll be talking about 154. Bye, guys.